Hello, this is a meeting of the Select Board for Tuesday, September 14th, 2021. The Select Board will be entering into executive session for the purposes of litigation and collective bargaining. If doing so in open session would have a detrimental effect on our negotiating positions, and the chair so declares. The board will reconvene in open session approximately around 6 p.m. All those in favor of entering into executive session? Raul?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Miriam?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
All right,
Welcome. This is the open session of the Select Board for Tuesday, September 14th, 2021. I will start with a few updates and announcements. The first announcement I would like to make is that town meeting member and library trustee Gary Jones passed away. He was a town meeting member in Precinct 3, where I was a town meeting member, and I know we all are mourning his passing. Then the other announcement that I would like to make, this is the first day of Hispanic Heritage Month. I would also like to announce, I've signed up for the Hidden Brookline Walking Tour, which will be on October 3rd at 1 p.m. You can sign up to register at Brookline Adult and Community Education, their website. I would like to acknowledge that the town administrator, Mel Kleckner, has given his notice to the board. He intends to retire at the end of next year. More to come as we discuss that transition. And then finally, the last announcement that I would like to make. Over the past few weeks, the board has been meeting in executive session to try to come to a resolution on the litigation matter involving Mr. Gerald Alston. I will turn it over to Raul, who will read a statement for the board.
Great, thank you, Heather. The Select Board and Mr. Gerald Alston have reached an agreement to end the litigation filed by Mr. Alston against the town of Brookline and other parties. The $11 million universal settlement is poised to end a painful 11-year saga, which deeply harmed Mr. Alston and brought discredit to the town of Brookline. The agreement recognizes the harm done to Mr. Alston, starting with the racial slur left on his voicemail by a supervisor in 2010, and the response to that incident in the decade that followed. The Select Board extends to Mr. Alston our sincere apologies for the town's mistakes and our commitment to seriously address racist and other discriminatory behaviors. We appreciate Mr. Alston's service to the town. The funding of this agreement requires a favorable vote by town meeting members at a special town meeting, which the Select Board will be scheduling for Tuesday, October 5th. Should town meeting fail to authorize funding, all parties will return to court where the finances and reputations of the town and the individual defendants are further at risk, and where the town will need to expend significant resources at trial. Should town meeting vote favorably on this warrant article, this matter will be concluded and all parties will be able to finally move forward and begin the healing process. The Select Board believes this settlement is the right thing to do for Mr. Alston and in the best interest of the town of Brookline, and we urge all town meeting members to support funding it. Thank you.
Any other updates or announcements by Select Board members? Bernard?
Yeah, I'd like to make a couple comments. I really am sad to hear that Gary Jones passed away. We found out just recently, and I'm sure we'll have a lot to say about him and his contributions to the town as a member of the library trustees for I think about 25, 26 years. So at any rate, I'm sorry, we're all sorry to hear that. And my condolences to his wife, Marcia, both of whom were considered good friends of mine. Okay, our 9/11 remembrance event was a success. Chair Hamilton and I spoke to a good-sized crowd at Fire Station 5. I saw Raul and John also there. The main speaker was Brookline firefighter Peter Moyer, whose brother was a firefighter who died on 9/11. Our state representative Tommy Vitolo and Nika Alagardo were in person, and U.S. Representative Jake Auchincloss, State Senator Cindy Cream, and DA Michael Morrissey provided video statements that were broadcast by Big. And we also had a video statement by sister of Brookline-born John Brett Cahill, who died on United Airlines Flight 175 out of Boston. We also had a discussion introduced by Jen Pastor and Drew Melvey of the Police and Fire Dispatcher Office regarding the first responders in any emergency. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Girl Scout troops who presented the flags, 6 Brookline Girl Scout troops, and John Bassett, who played taps for the crowd, not recorded, but live. At the end of the program, Chief Sullivan introduced the fire department's Remembrance Program for Fallen Firefighters, which is a moving program as it is every year. I want to mention that the fact that our state senators and representatives were there or participated is very much appreciated. And we should appreciate the fact that we have 5 state representatives and a senator who really support Brookline in a big way. Tommy Vitolo and Nico Lagardo's participation in this event and so many others is just one example. And I think that is why we were able to reverse the decision of the district court regarding the Brookline juvenile court situation. I mean, you know, the representatives and the senator, you have the purse strings, and that, you know, is where money speaks. And that's, I think, partially why we got that reversal. So can I also ask a question? On, I think, August 31st, we talked about writing a letter to some resettlement agencies regarding the Afghan refugees and other immigrants and indicate our willingness to assist them as a community. I wonder if anyone has done that, and if not, I'd like to urge, you know, someone to take that under their control.
I know I've seen some email traffic. Raul, do you know off the top of your head where that stands?
Yeah, I'll say briefly, I've reached out to some agencies and trying to get an answer to the question, what would be most helpful from a community like Brookline to be able to support these efforts? I haven't heard back yet. So I'll follow up on that outreach and hopefully have an answer sooner than later.
Thank you for bringing that up, Bernard. I recognize John and then Miriam.
Thank you very much. Before I get to the main purpose of my comments, thank you to my colleague Bernard Green for his part in putting together the September 11th observances. I think it was a very important moment for the town. To make a segue to my next comment, one of the messages that came through in the speeches that were given, especially the address by Peter Moyer, is that Brookline is at its best when it's a community that cares for one another, and that it's a community that looks out for one another. And I think that what we need to face now that we have heard the announcement by our chair as to the settlement agreement that we are going to ask town meeting to approve in the Gerald Alston matter. I think we need to face the decision of how we come together as a town in the face of this proposal, which I voted yes on. And I voted yes on it, even though along the way on the road to the agreement, I did not agree with particulars, and the one that is outstanding is the amount. But I will say this about my colleagues, whether we agreed on that amount or didn't agree on that amount, my colleagues worked in good faith towards this agreement. And I think all parties worked in good faith towards this agreement. And I think if people will take a close look at it, take a close look at the history of this case, and then think about what this agreement will mean to the town in terms of the ability to go forward, that I hope that enough people at town meeting will agree that this is the right way for this case to end. I want to particularly thank Chair Heather Hamilton. Steering this board towards a decision on anything is not the easiest thing in the world. Steering this board towards a decision in this matter was a particular challenge, but she got us this far, and now it's up to the rest of us to get this to town meeting and get this through town meeting as best we can. It's the beginning of the next phase of this process. It's not over yet. And I want to be part of that as much as possible. And so you'll hear more from me as to why I think this is the right thing for the town to do. But for tonight, I just wanted to say that it's very important that we've come this far. And I think we will make progress in the days ahead if we remember that we're at our best when we are, as a community, looking out for each other. And thank you for the time to say that.
Mel, did you have an update on the vaccine?
Sure. So there's been a couple of developments over the last couple of weeks, or really last. We're talking about the possibilities of the town having a more of a mandated vaccine program, which personally I'm favorable towards. Two things have happened. The first was right before actually the other matter, which was the school committee vote. The President of the United States announced an order of mandating vaccine for employers over, I believe, 100 employees. It's frankly not clear whether that is applicable to municipal government employers like us. I did notice that the governor did not appear too favorable towards that. And so we have to really figure that out. But in fact, later that evening, the school committee did vote a policy, which I believe it will engage with the unions on, and that basically directs that a mandated vaccine or alternative testing program be in place for the school system within a certain period of time. I think our approach has been to inform our unions first, and then take action. And that's what we're doing right now. We're in good faith telling our unions about our consideration and my personal interest in having a more aggressive vaccine or alternative program to ensure safety for our residents, our employees, and quite frankly, to set a standard for our community.
Thank you, Mel. And I apologize to Miriam.
No worries, Heather. Thank you. So first, I just want to say I did participate in my first groundbreaking on Monday for the Driscoll School. And I think it really is a shout out of what the community can do when it comes together. And a special thank you to Susan Wolf-Didkoff and to Heather Hamilton, who really took the reins with that committee and has now handed it over to me. Thanks, Heather. And Val and I hope to carry on this good work, but I really want to thank everybody who was involved. I'm not going to list everybody, but because the list is long, but just to know, it's very exciting what's happening over at Driscoll. The second thing is I also want to thank, all of us at the select board, but really Heather and Raul and Mel and Melissa, really getting this agreement and doing it, I think, in the most in a way that really elevates the importance of justice. And I'm very proud that we went at it with that lens. And so I think it's really important when we look to vote and when we ask town meeting members to vote, that this is an agreement based with a moral core that is strong and purposeful, and that puts us, the town of Brookline, back on the kind of path in which we can be leaders. And so I really implore you all to think very carefully about a yes vote for this. And I really do want to thank Heather and Raul especially for their hard work on getting this done. So thank you.
Okay, I think it's time for public comments, so I will turn it over to Raul.
Right. Thank you. I do, before we start, I just want to join my colleagues in mourning the loss of Gary Jones and all that he's meant to the community of Brookline. So I join you all in that. Folks, thank you for joining us for public comment. This is an opportunity for us to hear your perspective on the issues in Brookline that matter to you. We do have a few rules I'd like to share. Each person tonight is limited to 3 minutes. You don't need to use the entire time, but you may if you like. Please refrain from personal attacks and from addressing personnel issues during your comments. Members of the public sometimes raise questions during public comment. We may be able to provide a quick answer to a question, but are more likely to work with staff to get a more thorough answer and respond over email. We'll let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining, and when your time is up, please conclude your remarks at that time. If you have more to say, you're welcome to send an email to board members expressing your thoughts in greater detail. Let's get to it. Devin, who's first on our list?
The first person signed up for public comment is Susan Podziba. You've been promoted to a panelist. You can unmute and your 3 minutes will begin.
Thank you. I was really hoping I wasn't going to be the segue from all those difficult issues to something so basic as roads and sidewalks, but here I am. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. I've lived on Orchard Road for 32 years, and our street was last repaved about 20 years ago. 1/8 of our street is Boston. We're at the border, and that part of the street has been repaved every 5 to 7 years. We've been asking the town for proper sidewalks for more than a decade, and we've learned that our street is categorized in a way that it will probably not be repaved within my lifetime without additional resources. Apparently, for the kind of street that I live on and the category it's in, it will take $34 million to pave all of the roads in town that need that done. I'd like to quickly share some photos with you. So this is my driveway. I can't pull out of my driveway without scraping the bottom of my car. And with every difficult rain, more and more of my driveway gets washed away. This is a patch that the town did some number of years ago. This is another patch in front of my house that the town did a few years ago. And this is our poor Orchard Road ginkgo tree that was imprisoned when the town finally gave us asphalt sidewalks about 10 years ago. So I'm here to ask you to use the American Rescue Plan dollars for deferred road maintenance and infrastructure improvements. Hillsborough County in Florida has just earmarked $35 million of its ARPA funds to repave roads, so it's an allowable use. We have a new DPW commissioner, and I'm asking you to give her the resources, give her more staff and resources to look at the system that doesn't allow for all of our roads to be appropriately addressed. She needs more resources, she needs more staff. Let's give her the opportunity to succeed. She's inherited a mess of roadway, and we need to give her the resources to succeed. My road, Orchard Road, is horrific, and frankly,
30 seconds.
Okay, I will go to the 4 things I want to ask you. 1 is to repave and properly sidewalk Orchard Road. 2 is review the assumptions of the town's pavement management program, which has allowed our streets to severely degrade. 3 is free the Orchard Road ginkgo tree from its asphalt prison And 4 is to use the ARPA funds and future infrastructure federal funds to achieve these goals. Thank you.
The next person signed up for public comment is Bonnie Bastion. Bonnie, you've been promoted to a panelist and your 3 minutes will begin.
Hey, everybody. My name is Bonnie Bastion. I'm a town meeting member in Precinct 5, and I live on Oakland Road. I'm commenting tonight to alert you to the community, you and the community, that Mutual Aid Brookline has seen the largest uptick in food subsidy needs since we started this past week between September 7th and the 13th. This is coming as Mutual Aid Brookline has seen our lowest level of donations ever. We are approaching the very end of our resources, and the lower the resources get, the more we cut back on what we can offer. This past week, we limited our subsidies to only those who request our resources regularly. We didn't take any new requests or any requests from new folks. Even so, our total grocery subsidies was over $3,000. That's more than we have ever paid out in 1 week. This is happening because last week, many of our neighbors lost all unemployment benefits. In 1 week, they lost the federal extension beyond 26 weeks of regular unemployment benefits. They lost the pandemic unemployment assistance for those not qualified for standard unemployment. And they lost the federal unemployment compensation benefit, which was $300 per week on top of regular unemployment benefits. And all of this on top of the end of the eviction moratorium. As you know, Mutual Aid Brookline resources are on top of the more traditional resources in Brookline, like the food pantry and the rental assistance resources from the safety net program at the Brookline Center. This is important information as the select board moves into the process of considering how to spend federal ARPA money. I urge you to approve the agreement with the Brookline Community Foundation so we can look forward to a thorough community engagement process. I also want to remind everyone that even though much of our lives have returned to something resembling normal, these basic needs like food are not only still there, but growing, the lack of ability to access food. So please consider donating to the food pantry, to the Brookline Community Foundation, and to Mutual Aid Brookline so that we can all continue to do the hard work of taking care of each other. Mutual Aid Brookline is accepting monetary donations as well as grocery gift card donations. You can find ways to donate on our website at mutualaidbrookline.com. Lastly, if anyone here isn't on the Mutual Aid Brookline weekly delivery fact sheet email list, please sign up because Liz Neal provides a precise breakdown of the numbers every single week in Mutual Aid deliveries.
You have 20 seconds.
That's all. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
The next person signed up for public comment is Marty Rosenthal. You've been promoted to a panelist and your 3 minutes will begin when you're ready.
I think I'm ready. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to deviate briefly and make 2 other comments that I wasn't prepared to make. Gary Jones was a good friend of mine, of Brookline's and of Brookline Taxes, and I deeply regret that he's passed away. I've been in touch with his wife, Marcia, and his good friend, John Bussinger, for the last couple of months, and I knew that things were difficult, but I'm sorry to hear that, and we will all miss him. Secondly, speaking of missing people, I've been sorry this week to hear about Mel's retirement from Brookline. I have served either with or under at least 3 town administrators. I'm losing count now, but there's none that have been better than Mel, and I appreciate everything he's done for Brookline. So the reason I was originally planning to be here was, as Heather knows, there were rumors around the community that there was a possible Alston settlement and a possibility of a special town meeting. And this morning, I sent Heather a request that a warrant article be added to indemnify Stanley Spiegel for his legal fees in the Alston case. And I don't know if that's been discussed yet or if it will be later tonight, but I do want to speak on behalf of that item. I'm also Stanley's lawyer. I've been a town meeting member now for over 40 years, and I'm a former select board member as well. And I think this is very important to the town. I also think it's legally mandatory under Chapter 258, Section 13 of the state laws that the town adopted by ballot question by a 2-to-1 vote in 1980. When this case started, December of 2015, I was not aware of that ballot vote or that mandatory indemnity applied. We knew Stanley needed separate counsel because a lot of cases that allege a conspiracy need separate lawyers, and he was alleged to be a conspirator with the town and vice versa. We were denied indemnity then. We were told, come back after if you get a dismissal. We came back in 2018 and we were again denied, both times by 2-vote pluralities with some abstentions. So now the case has been finished in the First Circuit. The dismissal's been affirmed.
You have 30
Sanctions
seconds.
Did I hear something?
You have 30 seconds.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Sanctions for a frivolous lawsuit have been affirmed, and I was about to come back in April when then town council wrote to me that she's always believed that Stanley should be made whole. And now with this settlement, I think the time is here to make Stanley whole. His fees over 6 years are approaching at reduced rates $200,000. And if this is not done, he will be the only financial victim of this entire case because all the other officials have been indemnified. So
You've reached 3 minutes.
okay, so I reiterate the words that Miriam used, justice and moral core, and I think that they apply to Stanley Spiegel. Thank you.
The next person signed up for public comment is Robin Barras. You've been promoted to a panelist. You can unmute and share your video if you're comfortable, and your 3 minutes will begin.
Okay, hi there. I'll try to move where I am so I'm not in the dark. So I don't see my dog is barking. I'll go to the other room. You get a tour of my house in the meantime.
Oh, I kind of like the tour.
Yeah,
Must have hit the wrong button.
there we go.
Oh, she's back.
Related to the same issues that Susan spoke about, going on Orchard Road, I got a really beautiful email, as Susan did, and I think members of the select board received, from Robert King. Very thorough, very nice, and quite frankly, it's consistent with the other town employees that from time to time I have contact with. What comes through is the fact that he tries his best, but he doesn't have enough money to do everything that's needed. And so many times there's also delays in terms of people getting back to residents such as me. For example, I have been waiting for a new trash can for more than a year. I'm thinking something like 16 months. The fact is that I am so happy to be in Brookline. I'm so thankful. And I love all of the community priorities. And I love the fact that it's as inclusive as it is. And I love that it's as diverse as it is. But I really hope that everybody's taking into account the fact that people are working so hard for the town as employees. They don't have enough resources. The streets really are a mess. I'm so sorry to hear that it will take 10 years, like $32 million or $34 million of repairs are needed, and they basically have about $2 or $3 million a year. There needs to be a priority for those kinds of issues. People like myself work real hard for my life, during my life, work hard to have the outside of my house look nice. And it's really a shame for it to be so crummy. Surprisingly, we're just a few feet away in Boston. It's just a heck of a lot different story in terms of the streets looking nicer. So that's my comment, to have things just focused on that need to be focused on, along with all of the other issues that are easy to love in Brookline.
At this time, there are 21 attendees, and no one has used the hand raise or Q&A feature to indicate they'd like to make a comment.
Heather, back to you.
Great, thank you. So I can go into the miscellaneous agenda items. Bernard, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Who muted me? Okay, I'd like to take items 7E, F, and G out so I can vote separately on that. That has to do with CDBG contracts.
Do you have questions or just philosophical differences?
No, I just want to make the point, and I do have a question for Mel with respect to the distribution of funding for this. So I can do that real quick if you want.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Because I told Devin to promote Joe Viola.
Okay, well, that's great because he's the person I'm talking. So you may recall that back in May, we had found some additional money from money that was going to the food pantry that could be used to supplement or add to the various projects that the CDBG Advisory Committee had made recommendations for, but not anywhere near what they were asking for. And the board voted with my abstention to give all that money to Steps to Success, which is a great program that I support. But my concern was that there were a lot of great programs that should have been equitably benefiting from this additional money that we had for these programs. So back then I voted abstain with respect to giving all of the money to Steps to Success. And I think I'll have to vote abstain now, but, and this is a question to Mel, hopefully there'll be funding from the ARPA funds to cover some of the needs of the Council of Aging's TRIPS transportation program, Community Mental Health Center's case management program, and the Brookline Housing Authority's resident services program. But unless Mel can say otherwise, there's no guarantee that we'll get that money. So the question is, what are the chances are that we can supplement those programs with money from the ARPA funding?
Mel, you're muted.
Yeah. It's a tough question. I don't, I'm quite sure that those kind of programs will be identified in our public engagement strategy. I'm pretty confident that those will rise to the fore. And whether somebody develops program requests around them, I don't know. If it's important to the board, I think, I should hear that. And so that we should make sure those requests are evaluated and made. I'm assuming they will, Bernard, but we're not making any sort of advance calls on our ARP funds right now.
Yeah. Okay.
So Bernard, how about this? I'll take on coordinating with TRIPS because I fully support that program. I would love for it to be fully funded. If you want to tackle the other ones that you listed, and let's make sure that they at the very least submit an application to be considered via our portal. Okay.
Okay.
So I can certainly pull those out for a separate vote. Any objections from other board members? Okay. So let me dispense with that first. So those are, it was E through G?
G. Yes.
Okay. So I move approval of a question of approving, well, maybe I have an old one. This is change order to contract. Okay. Hold on.
Oh, there's a new agenda that Devin circulated. I didn't notice a change either.
Which, okay.
So it's a question of approving and authorizing the chair to execute following fiscal year 22 sub-recipient agreements. And that's the first one. Second one is approving contracts. And the third one is approving budgets for the CDBG grant.
Okay, Devin, I'm gonna need your help because I don't know if I have the correct language.
It is 7E through 7H.
Yeah, but For whatever reason, I have an old agenda.
Heather, I also have the language here if you'd like me to read it out.
Please.
Yeah. All right, so 7E, this is a question of approving and authorizing the chair to execute the following FY 2022 sub-recipient agreements. Council on Aging, Brookline Trips Program, $31,492. Brookline Center for Community Mental Health, Case Management, $60,000. Brookline Housing Authority, BHA Resident Capital Improvements, $312,063. Steps to Success Work Connections Youth Training Program, $63,220. Brookline Housing Authority Resident Services Self-Sufficiency Program, $37,109. Brookline Food Bank Food Security, $13,780. F, I'm assuming we're going to take these together, so I'll just keep reading the other two. 7F, question of approving and authorizing the chair to execute extensions to the following contracts.
Wait, actually, can we vote on that one? Because the other one is
That's separate?
the favorite one. Yeah.
Okay. Fine by me. Heather?
Okay, thank you. I figured it out. I was reading off of the August 31st agenda. That's why I was very confused. So let's move approval for those. Bernard,
Abstain.
Raul,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Miriam,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. So resuming.
You
So
can
that
pick
was,
it up from here if you have it.
yes, Miriam.
I have a question because I recall that we talked about it, but I'm really sorry. I don't recall exactly. We had talked about the $150,000 for the DPW for the audible pedestrian signals. Are those going into low and moderate income housing locations? Does anybody have an answer to that?
That
Joe.
was my understanding, but I don't
Does
quite.
anybody remember the discussion? I remember.
I do
we-
remember the
Okay.
discussion,
Yeah, I
actually,
remember
yeah.
the discussion. The individuals that are benefiting from this program are presumed to be low and moderate income under the CDBG regulations.
I just
Is
wanted
that
that.
correct, Joe?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we dispensed with numbers 7E,
7E.
just
And-
7E.
Just
And
70.
take all the others, in under your consent.
Okay. So can I take the entire miscellaneous as one? Nothing else coming
Yeah.
out? Okay, so let's do the minutes first, and then I'll kind of do a fast read of everything that's in the miscellaneous. So I will move approval of the meeting minutes for the August 3rd and the August 31st meeting. Bernard,
Aye.
Raul,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Miriam,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Now I will briefly summarize most of the miscellaneous. An authorization to hire for a clinical social worker for the Council on Aging. Also an authorization to hire zoning coordinator planner in our planning department. Approving contract related to sewer system rehabilitation project. Green Mountain Pipeline Services. Then skipping over 7E, question of approving and authorizing the chair to execute extensions to the following contracts, to Brookline Food Bank on food security, Brookline Center for Community Health for the Safety Net Program, Economic Development Long-Term Planning, Business Assistant Program, the Council on Aging for food delivery for seniors, Brookline Housing Authority for the fiscal year 2021 resident health safety projects. Also approving following budgets for the CDBG grant, program management, program administration for housing administration on affordable housing, Department of Public Works, audible pedestrian signals, Brookline Improvement Coalition capital needs, Department of Planning and Community Development, Economic Development, Small Business Assistance Program. Also budget reallocations for CDBG, administration, youth training, comprehensive planning, housing division, BCCMH facilities, and then some temporary wine and malt beverage non-sales licenses, mostly to Lars Anderson Auto Museum, Hellenic Association. So that is what is in this consent agenda. All those in favor of all of those items? Bernard,
Aye.
Raul,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Miriam,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Moving into our regular calendar, I believe this is a request to hire new police officers, and we will be hearing from the chief of police, Mark Morgan.
Good evening. I'm appearing in front of you to ask for authorization to hire 9 new police officers. Previously, the board had approved 4 officers in December of 2019. This is really 5 additional, that 4 to be a total of 9. Prior to COVID, the budget cut from COVID, we had authorized 139 officers. Currently, we have 120 officers. This authorization of 9 new officers would bring us up to the number of 129. It would be over probably a year from now where these officers would actually be on the street. We're looking at hiring. They went and took the test, was I believe in March or April. The scores came back. We just got a certified list on September 1st. We're looking at another Northeastern Cambridge Academy be held. It's supposed to a tentative start date in February. Would get them graduating from the academy sometime in July. The 2 months of in-house training, they'd probably be able to work independently by themselves sometime next September. So that would still leave 6 vacancies of the after COVID number. We went back to pre-COVID number would be a total of 10 vacancies. Additionally, I'm going to have officers retiring. When officers hit in February is hitting mandatory retirement age, they has to leave. And I'm aware of a few other officers who are seeking employment elsewhere at this time. And those are only, but I know, I'm sure there's maybe other people over the course of the year that will be leaving.
Mel, did you want to say a few words before I open it up to select board members?
I just wanted to reiterate something Mark said, Acting Chief Morgan said, and that was that if we're worried about leaving vacancies to absorb reductions in the workforce or reductions in force for whatever reason, there are plenty of flexibility in vacancies. So we'd really love to be able to get this group of employees into an academy and moving forward with that. The civil service process is very lengthy and difficult. So we believe we'll generate hopefully as diverse a candidate pool as we have in the past, in the recent past, and I'd like to move forward with that as the chief suggested.
Raul.
Thanks, Heather. Chief, I'd like to understand, you submitted an org chart that lists, and it's in our packet, public packet, that lists the vacancies that are currently existing based on prior staffing levels. It doesn't, it still includes the 4 school resource officers and the 3 walk and talk officers, 2 units that this board voted to eliminate earlier this year. I'm curious to know what those 7 individuals are doing and how that would impact the vacancies that are existing, because it's not clear to me where they are in the org chart now.
So as far as the particular was the walk and talk officers, I'll address them first. They're still doing duties as far as when they're being called to the housing authority, been dealing with the residents of those issues when they have issues. They're not doing the active patrolling where it was alleged that they were surveilling people too much. So we've taken those duties away from them. They still responding to all the calls in the housing properties and dealing with the citizens there on a day-to-day basis, whether it's medical reports, whether it's quality of life issues, whether it's crime reports, they're still participating in that. They're not doing the actual walking and talking within the BHA properties. The school resource officers, we changed the school safety officers, they're still doing, being reached out by the school. There's still, the calls have not gone away for their assistance from for handling the same type of calls they did when they were in the schools. So now they're just basically being the liaison to the schools. I've had talks with several conversations with Superintendent Gilroy of the Brookline Public Schools. He, to paraphrase him, he believes that the school resource officers are of value to the school system. He's looking now as far as how to leverage the resources of these officers, their training and experience. So, with his staff, how they can continue to use them and what capacity that is. So I did have conversation with them. So these are specialized jobs. People are certified. They actually have to be trained to be instructors as far as in other things. They also augment other duties within the community service division.
I just have to respond and just say, it sounds to me like these changes are not in the spirit of the vote that this select board took earlier this year. The idea that I'm not quite sure what those walk and talk officers are doing if they're not walking and talking, but are only responding to calls in Brookline Housing Authority properties, and what they do with the remainder of their time. Maybe that's a conversation for another day. But also while I appreciate that the superintendent, believes there's some benefit there, I think the school committee was clear and the select board was clear on our position there. And so, it's very difficult to address these, we have all these vacancies, and essentially what I'm hearing is that by and large, the seven officers, and I'm sure they have different titles, but we'll just say officers that were doing work that this board, asked them not to do anymore, are effectively, I'm hearing, still doing it and not doing anything else, and not filling some of the potential vacancies that we have. It doesn't make any sense to me, and it's certainly not in line with the directive of this board.
Well, I have to respond to that as far as that they're doing other things as far as engaging the community center, engaging in the parks, engaging with the youth, they're doing the community engagement. They're not actively patrolling it as far as what you said, as far as they didn't want them in there. We still get the calls. The calls are not going away. They still have the personnel. As far as the schools, it's by state law. It's the superintendent of the schools that it's his purview as far as whether the school resources are in school, within the schools. Same thing as far as, I with all respect that the board as police commissioners aren't supposed to be involved into the day-to-day operations of the police department and the management of the police department, which is some of the things as far as what we do with our staffing and what we do with our personnel.
So I'm going to interrupt. I'll leave it to the school committee to address the school resource officer request from the superintendent. But what I'm hearing is that there are so we still get calls from Brookline Housing, and we have to respond to those calls. But I think it would help me understand exactly what the officers that were assigned to walk and talk do. Because this board did make a position pretty clear. Now, I think what Chief Morgan is trying to describe is that they're responding to calls and that they're not just going there of their own volition. I think that is an important distinction, but I think we need to better understand exactly what the changes that have been made are.
So there's two different things there, what they do and the staffing for further positions on the road. Officer Stevenson is the evening community service officer. He works with the liaison with the teen center as far as also calls the BHA. He's a graffiti investigator with numerous complaints of investigation of all graffiti complaints within the town. He's BHS roundtables participates. He's a loose youth liaison, and he was the family unit in the CSD, and also as a CIT member. Kristen Healy, Officer Kristen Healy is the evening community officer also. She's our LGBTQ liaison. She does with the, also works with the calls of the BHA. She's a RAD instructor and RAD, trying to get the RAD program up and going and coordinate that. Elder support liaison, and she runs it with the Special Olympics, and is also a CIT that she's involved with. So they're doing the work of the calls that come in. I mean, as far as, there's other officers as just doing the calls. They're actually doing community engagement and their roles within the community to service the, within the community service division to do other things, whether it's a dance at the teen center or something at the gym after the school. I mean, as far as this is what they're doing.
So Mel Mel just tried to raise his hand. I see John, who's had his hand raised for a little while, and Bernard. Mel, I assume that you're responding to something that was said. So I'm going to take you out of.
No, I'll defer, Heather. I do want to speak before vote's taken.
Okay, John?
Yeah, I actually do have a question for the chief, but before I get to it, I would like to make a couple of comments. I would be alarmed if the police were not responding to calls from BHA and not responding to calls from the schools. And, I said earlier that I was grateful to our chair for leadership, because it's not the easiest thing to get this board to agree on some decisions. And if my colleagues will forgive me for saying this, sometimes even after we make a decision, it's not that easy to get the board to agree on what is the decision they made. That was a 3-2 vote. It's pretty clear in my mind that a couple of things preceded that 3-2 vote. And they had to do with the response of the school committee and the response of the BHA. My position from the very beginning to the very end was that it was up to the school committee to decide the future of the school resource officers. And it was up to the BHA to decide the future of the officers who serviced the walk and talk program. And I was disappointed. And then I said it at the time. I was disappointed. I thought the school committee, frankly, came to the wrong conclusion. And I think we've heard one reason tonight that it was not the right time for the school committee to make that decision. They had an incoming superintendent who hadn't, as far as we can tell, had not even been given a say in whether the school resource officers should continue. So I thought it was disappointing they came to those decisions. But what was part of those decisions, and this is the relevant part of this statement, was that the school committee indicated they were going to come back with a proposal for how to replace the school resource officer program. And the housing authority agreed that they were going to come back at some point in the future with a proposal as to how to replace the walk and talk program. Because in neither case did they say, we do not need to have a relationship with police. We don't want police on our property. They said that the relationship we have needs to change, and we're going to make proposals as to how to change it. So in the meantime, the calls have to be addressed, and the calls are still coming in for police responses. I'm glad they're responding. Here's my question for the chief.
Please.
Yep.
Because we're getting really off topic. This is about the authorization to hire new police officers.
Well, and here's where that comes in. The chief mentioned that there is a list, and we're talking about hiring 9 people. I would like to know how many people are on the civil service list.
So currently on the residential civil service, there's 12 candidates, and we, and they are diverse from what I can tell. I didn't get the breakdown from the civil service. We're not able to. I was attempting to, just from what I know of my, knowledge as far as based on some of the language skills that some speak Arabic, Asian, Japanese, Albanian. So I know it's the diverse group as far as that, but there's only 12 residents on there. And, the one thing is, I looked at the census from 2010 to 2020, and we've increased our citizen number of residents by 4,500. So I don't think as far as your school population goes up, you build the new schools. And here I'm just trying to sustain what I have for police officers as far as, and the population has gone up to 63,400, close to 64,000.
I appreciate the answer very much. It sounds like an exciting group of candidates, and I, as a general rule, am always going to be in favor of bringing as many new and diverse and younger officers into the department as we can. And I hope we can do that through this group. But I do want people to understand that one of the limitations of working under civil service is that you're sometimes hiring from a list, which leaves you very little flexibility. 9 candidates out of 12 on a list does not mean you have all that much flexibility to make choices. And that's the only reason I asked that question.
Bernard and then Miriam.
Yeah, by the way, it's not the case that the housing authority did not tell the police not to go on their property. They said, do not go on our property. And now we're seeing that once you terminate the walk and talk unit and the SRO, you don't terminate the problems that occur in the schools and at the housing authority.
I'll just interrupt you, Bernard, because they did send that follow-up clarification memo.
And it didn't say anything serious. But at any rate, this is one of the consequences of bad decisions. And my question to the chief is, I noticed on your webpage that there were a number of incidents at the school involving sexual predatory risk, as well as I think sexting by teenagers. These are things that the school resource officer really focused on in terms of training and giving guidance, and also tracking down predators who are going after school kids. I guess the question is, who's doing that now? Is that the police, or is the schools stepping up and saying, as they claim they would, providing resources to address these problems that are impacting their students?
Well, there was previously under the AWARE program that our officers taught at the schools, which they haven't done for the last year and a half. So I think there's two grades have missed out on that. I'm unsure. I don't have an answer to you as to who's doing that now. I can't, until they make an informed thing. I don't know what the curriculum is in the schools.
Well, we had those services and then we threw them away, and now the consequences.
Okay, this is just painful. This is just painful. We had this discussion. We took a vote. And it's really what really bothers me, not that we're relitigating this issue again, is that we took a vote as a select board, and whether it is whether other people agree with it or not is irrelevant, right? So the school committee took a vote 8-0. So the school committee needs to be in discussion with the superintendent about what's going on with the SROs. But this board voted to remove the SRO program. And it really, really bothers me that what I'm hearing is that that's not happening because somebody else didn't want it to happen. And I'm pretty sure that's not how it works. So somebody please correct me.
So let me, the SROs were removed from the schools. They one at the high school is there. She had an officer from the high school. She's been removed. The officers that taught at the schools, their classes have not been taught. They don't go to the schools and teach their classes. Those were the fundamental rooms, SROs. SROs still have to go to school and cross the kids. That's what they were part of their duties before. They're still getting calls from faculty and staff at the schools about problems. They're going there and addressing them. They're not doing the same roles they had as SROs. They've been modified.
Thank you. That clarification is very important because that is certainly not what came across.
Mel has been trying to get a word in.
Sure. Well, I regret the way this discussion has gone. Yeah, and I want to say to all the board members, whether staff likes it or whether it's a 3-2 vote or a 5-0 vote, a majority vote of the select board is what controls our activities. And so I don't want to give the impression that we're somehow trying to manipulate that vote. My own sense is that this is a simple matter of there are more vacancies than the number of people we're talking about here. The board continues to retain control of who gets hired and when. And so, the fact that the chief has left these people in a box, I don't really think it really should imply that we're not following the board's directive. I think that's an unfortunate.
And if I may, you know, I was the swing vote, and I'm disappointed to hear some of the language, although I don't think that, I'm choosing not to take it as that, you know, we took a vote and it's just not being carried out. I think we're just kind of talking past each other right now. We're not using the same language and we're not coming with the same assumptions. I think that there's a role to play when we finally hire a new chief. And maybe what we do at that time is have a discussion about, you know, the org chart as it stands when that person comes in and our expectations. I think these wounds are still pretty fresh, but I think to Mel's point, we're losing more officers than we have the opportunity to gain, and that's creating some attrition problems. So I'm willing to vote for this. I think this is a conversation that we're going to have to schedule on a regular basis with whatever chief we have. My understanding, Mel, is that we're going to obtain a search firm fairly shortly. We're going to get that process underway. We're not going to solve this here tonight. So any other comments? Raul?
Thank you, Heather. Yeah, I'll just say, I think our standards are way too low in terms of what we as a board are allowing. We're asking for 9 positions here, and are unclear at this moment as this board I think is ready potentially to approve them, what a number of our officers are even doing with their time. You know, to hear that you know, I think that the conversation about these SRO and walk and talk officers is germane to this larger conversation about these openings, because there was, you know, folks may disagree, but there was a clear vote taken, and we can go back and look at the language of it. And the expectation was that these folks wouldn't be doing this work. And now what we're hearing is that they basically, they still are. I mean, they literally even have the same titles on the org chart, and I imagine are still being referred to by the same titles or some other thing. But this is, you know, we've got to do better than this. We have to do better than this. You know, if you know, we've had conversations before about chain of command, and I'm hearing that the board now is potentially micromanaging. I don't think that's the case at all. I think that we're ensuring that a directive that was made by this board is being followed through, and that's all there is there. Without more information, and I think we deserve to have more information, there's no way that I can vote tonight to approve additional positions when I'm not even exactly sure what some of the folks who are underemployed are even doing, being that we've asked them to not do certain work, which it appears they're still doing. So I'm sorry, no.
But can I just, I just want to say one thing, but on the organizational chart, if you look into where it says school safety officers, that's not, those are school crossing guards, okay? We mean that as far as the what was commonly called the walk and talk, we put down a youth resource officers, and as far as those for the schools, and then the community service officers, EV. So the walk and talk does not appear on here. SROs does not appear on this chart.
That's what I meant, but I think we're talking past each other. We're not using the same language. I want to hear from Bernard. Okay. I hear you.
Heather, if I may, I'll just say they've been renamed, but they still are. They're literally in the same boxes. They've simply been renamed. It's not what this board asked for. I'm sorry, it's not.
Yeah, well, yeah, they don't get to know the kids like they did before. They don't have school resource officers, an office in the schools where kids can come to them with problems, with threats that they hear about on the weekend that may show up in the schools. The fact is that we did not tell the police officers who were SROs or walk and talk officers that they cannot stop crime. And when they get calls regarding criminal activity or other activities that require a police response, this board does not have authority to say that you cannot go out and deal with that problem. I mean, I doubt that we have that authority. Maybe we do. But if that's not what we did when we made that, what I consider ill-advised vote in June, the fact that you have police who respond to calls is not something that can just be terminated, because the reason for the calls, the demands on their services, do not terminate. We still have the need for responding to everything from predatory actions against kids to fights and things in various places. So the idea that the police are somehow doing police work and that's what we are trying to stop is doesn't make sense to me. Maybe it does to other people.
So I personally would like to better understand some of the changes that were implemented as a result of our vote on specifically walk and talk. So I think that do we have to make a decision tonight about this? Is there a deadline to get these officers into an academy?
Actually, there is. I mean, it's not a deadline, hard deadline, but there's a process that once you authorize it, they have to be notified by the Civil Service Commission to come in and sign a list. From that, we have to start, they have to go over into background interviews, psychological, medicals, 2 types of physical abilities tests to get them into the academy that we're hoping to start. This the psychological exam, all written and interview. It's a progress. We're up against it. It may not seem when I'm saying it's not going to start in February, but all this process we're right up against it, as far as we went through a process like this similarly, and we thought we had 9 slots in the Plymouth Academy. We didn't get it done. As far as there was people who were through the process that was approved, and they have to finish up this PAT test, physical ability test. It's the last thing they do. Once they get that, they're cleared to go to the academy. We didn't get them cleared in time. We lost those spots in the academy to somebody who had 9 or whatever number of people that were cleared. And we had to wait 8 months for the people we had already hired to go to academy. So, I mean, I'm not saying if you put it off next week, we're not going to get it done. I'm just saying time is up in the essence that the whole procedure that needs to take place.
Yeah, we should vote.
John? You're muted.
Thank you, Heather. Sorry. I do want to encourage that we vote in favor of to approve the chief's request on this tonight. And I say that recognizing at the same time that I think our chair and others have very legitimate questions, and those questions can be examined. We're going to be working on issues of the changing policing for the future for months and years to come. And we can do that just as well with an exciting class of additional hires filling necessary positions in the police department as we could if we for some strange reason send a kind of distress signal to the police that we can't even agree that they need more personnel to fill vacancies in the department. Let's admit we have a bit of a morale problem in the police department right now. And I think it would be further damaging to that situation if for some reason we can't even see our way clear to fill vacancies when they occur and deal with our concerns as a board over how we use our police and what the future of policing in the community is as we go forward. We can do that.
Miriam? You're muted.
Yeah, thank you. I don't see the harm in waiting a week so that we can get more clarity on how these roles have been repositioned. I need that. I'm fine. We may be talking at cross purposes, then give me the chance to get some clarity on that and to feel comfortable about what I'm voting on. That's what I'm asking for.
I think I want that too. So I'm going to put this off for a week. I do apologize, Chief. I'm inclined to vote for it, but I'm a little troubled by some of the things that I've heard here tonight. So I just want to better understand the results of the vote that we took. So we will take this up next week.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along. Marijuana host community agreements, Monique Baldwin.
Hello, how's it going?
Good.
So I'm just going to give a brief overview of what you guys have received in your packets. Essentially, you should have received 2 draft host community agreements for the marijuana courier applicants, as well as the marijuana delivery applicants. This is just a reminder that those 2 license types are exclusively available to equity applicants per the state for the next 3 years. And so in reviewing the host community agreements for the retailers, the board asked that staff take a look at, the host community agreements and find some barriers and try to eliminate those for our future marijuana establishments. So I've sent you guys a memo, and the memo basically outlines the changes. And so the first one is the marijuana courier. And so how this differs from the marijuana retail host community agreement is that the courier, the mitigation fee is set to 1.5%. And that is because the courier it does not permit, anybody to walk in. It does not permit, queuing. It's a less intense use on the site than a marijuana retailer. Also, couriers, they don't, it's not required that their vehicles be located on the site. So we felt that 1.5% was sufficient, just because it could resemble an office space, really. So the second change was for the marijuana delivery operators. And we proposed that mitigation fee for 2%. And that's because, with this type of establishment, a warehouse is required per the state, as well as a fleet of vehicles. So we felt that the impacts were a little bit greater than of the courier, because you'll have some additional traffic considerations. Regarding both host community agreements before you, we did revise the payment schedule. As you'll remember, there was a $100,000 upfront payment due within 5 days of opening of a marijuana retail establishment. So we have just changed the terms to be consistent with a quarterly bill that's due. And finally, we have just included some clauses regarding, these establishments hiring, local owned businesses or women owned or minority owned vendors. And I think that's it. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. Any comments from select board members? This is an annual thing, right, Monique?
It's a one-time.
Nope.
Okay.
Yes, this is a one-time thing, and sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to be clear that we do have experience with couriers. There was some confusion when speaking with people about this, but the town has experience with couriers just because Netta and Sanctuary have since partnered with couriers. However, those couriers are not based in Brookline. So in order to have, couriers and delivery operators based in Brookline, we need to have a host community agreement with these types of establishments. So while we have experience with them, we don't have any that are based here. So I just wanted to clear that up.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up. Raul.
I just want to briefly use this as an opportunity to thank Monique for all your great work in this role. You've been absolutely terrific, and moving forward, this really important equity agenda is part of this. So just want to say thank you for that, and I plan on supporting this. Thanks.
Any other comments? Okay, well, we could move the language if there are no objections. Okay, seeing no objections, I will move Approval of the amended host community agreements to reflect the changes on couriers, delivery operators, and equity retailers. All those in favor? Bernard,
Aye.
Raul,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Miriam.
Aye.
Oh, sorry, could I just interrupt? Did you say equity retailers?
That's what I have in my language.
So we do not have, I'm so sorry, we don't have the host community agreement for the retailers yet. We're still working on that. So just for now, you just have before you the courier and the delivery operator for the record.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. So the language is on couriers and delivery operators only. Bernard. Raul,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Miriam,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Thank you for
And by the way,
catching that.
I voted aye too. I apologize. I was on mute.
No worries.
Someone did it again.
Okay, I think that we are moving on to interviews. Thank you so much, Monique. Okay, first up is Abigail.
Hiller.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
And this is for the planning board.
Yep, that's right.
So if you just want to take about 90 seconds to give us an overview of who you are and why you're interested, and then I'll open it up to questions.
All right, sounds good. So my name's Abby Hiller. I currently direct research translation at a research and policy lab focused on economics out of Harvard's Department of Economics. And my role focuses on taking our findings around housing and neighborhoods and upward mobility and kind of translating them and getting them into the policymakers and other practitioners in an effort to inform their work that they're doing. So just to give you one example of a finding that I think is relevant and also motivating in this context, we find that neighborhoods have significant causal effects on the outcomes of the kids that grow up there. So that means that if you were to like take a given kid and move them a couple miles down Center Street from like Jackson Square to where I live on Cypress Street in Brookline, our estimates imply that they would end up earning $18,000 more per year in adulthood. And so to me, that implies not that we need to be shuffling kids around Greater Boston necessarily, but rather that the features of our neighborhoods, our zoning, our housing, our small business regulations have a pretty direct and substantial impact on the outcomes of the kids that are growing up in our neighborhoods. And so it's that kind of line of research and my background in urban planning and commercial real estate that's brought me to want to serve on the planning board and I use my expertise to serve the community. So thanks. I hope that was about 90 seconds.
I think that's close enough. Thank you very much for being efficient. Any questions from select board members? Miriam.
I hope this isn't too esoteric a question, but so I work in anti-racism. One of the things that we always focus on is, you know, the historical narrative and how that plays into everything we do in the future, and especially with things like urban planning. History has played such an important role. So I just, and you know, I'm obviously familiar with Raj Chetty's group, but I'm just interested where you land in the terms of your feelings of history and how that changes your lens as you do urban planning.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think if you look at the history of Boston, you look at a redlining map of Boston, you look at a zoning map of Brookline, you look at a map of upward mobility across Greater Boston, there's direct overlap there. And you see Black people, brown people have been forced into Roxbury, Mattapan, parts of Jamaica Plain, and you see that those places have been historically underinvested in. So I think, especially given the result around how neighborhoods shape kids' trajectory, there's an obligation not just to reduce segregation, but also to make investments in areas where upward mobility is currently low. And that's not necessarily relevant in this context because Brookline is so fortunate to be a place with really high levels of opportunity, but it does have direct implications for our need to desegregate Brookline to avoid getting too specific. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Any other? John.
Yeah, thank you very much for applying for this position on the board. And thank you for your interesting comments tonight. I have been following with great interest a debate that's ongoing, and it's getting more and more sort of high profile in Boston over the tension between planning and development. And you've got a lot of people in Boston right now who say development basically has been out of control. And as a result, that Boston is not getting the kinds of development, especially when it comes to equity issues, that it should be getting, for example, in the Seaport, and that it's time to take the control away from the developers and those who are promoting development and put it back into the hands of those who plan and who will plan for a map of development or a map of the future that is based on the needs of the community, not in the desires of developers. Where do you stand in that? I mean, do these two things inevitably come into conflict? How do you deal with planning your future versus inviting developers to be part of your future?
Oh, that's a really interesting question, because supply is really crucial in this conversation. And there is no supply in our economy without developers. I mean, the government really just doesn't develop. I mean, I assume you're talking about like residential development, right? And so the
versus commercial versus.
Oh, versus commercial. Yeah. Okay. So I guess in the context of housing, we find that in places actually with higher land use, more just higher restrictive land use, the cost of higher opportunity neighborhoods is more expensive. And so sometimes those land use regulations do serve to quell residential development to the detriment of residents. And so I think, but then on the flip side, when you have insufficient regulations, you get into a situation where you've got the vacant apartments in the Seaport that are being used kind of as investment properties. So I think regulation is of course crucial, but it's also can be at the detriment of development, and development is necessary. Likewise, in terms of commercial, I feel the same. Is that a sufficient response? I don't know if I addressed your question head on.
It's a helpful response. Thank you very much.
Great.
There are no right answers or wrong answers.
Fair enough.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for your interest. We will make a decision at a later date.
All right, sounds good. I look forward to hearing from you.
Excellent. Okay, next is Ginny, who is interested in serving on the Housing Advisory Board.
Hello, I am interested in participating in the Housing Advisory Board as a Brookline public housing resident. I live at Trustman Apartments. I have served on 2 commissions in Brookline, so I do have experience in that area. And my personal reason for wanting to participate in this commission is, and it's so timely because the person that was interviewing before me is speaking for development and how important development is, which I totally agree with. And I understand whether it's residential or commercial, they're all important. But I just want to make sure that low-income members of Brookline, and if I could, the world, would be represented and really thought about when we are developing these properties and how to make it accessible to them. How to improve living conditions within public housing in Brookline is also something that is on my mind often, especially with the other conversation that we were having about resource officers and if they are needed or aren't. I know that Brookline is a very passionate community, and there's a lot of people in the community that have very strong ideas or agendas. But I think I could be a valuable asset because I live there. I'm also a licensed social worker. And with my experience in working with students in schools, I understand how important it is, housing opportunities for families that are low income of color and not low income of color. So, yeah.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions for Ginny? Raul.
Thank you, and Ginny, thanks for applying for this. I'm curious. One of the thoughts that I've been thinking about with regard to the HAB is how funding is used to create new development versus taking care of existing, properties that we have right now in town. I'm just thinking about how you think about the balance there. Do you think we need to be spending more to develop new properties? Are we spending enough to take care of existing properties? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think they're both equally important. And yeah, I think they're both equally important because, as we know, living in housing for some families is like a cycle. You move in there because you need help, and then you go through certain life changes and maybe you don't need help, but you may need a step in the right direction or a helping hand in order to make it to the next level. But for those of us that do live in housing, I do feel that it is important to maintain properties. Like, we lived in housing, I know in my building, and a lot of the buildings next door to me, the doors don't work. So the buildings across the street, the locks are working, the locks are locked. No one can go into their front door. But at my building, the lock is unlocked, and it has been unlocked forever. So that may be a problem where we need to just educate residents. And that's just one example of, or I guess 2 examples in either direction about my feeling. I wish I had more time to elaborate, but I hope that captures it.
No, I appreciate it. It's clear how yours would be an important voice on the HAB there. So thank you.
Miriam.
I just have a quick question. First of all, thank you. And also, I just want to recognize the multitasking, which I do myself a lot. So I really props. I appreciate it. On your application, I see you have other activities. You list STS, which I assume is Steps to Success. BHA, I know, but you also have WT. I don't know what that acronym
That's
is.
Women Thriving, formerly known as Surviving and Thriving.
Okay, just that was my question. Easy peasy.
Great. Any other questions? Well, thank you very much for your interest. We will be making a decision at a later date.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. Have a good day.
Night. Moving along, I believe an ARPA update is in order. Melissa, maybe?
I will start, and I think it's a fairly straightforward discussion. This is in response to our discussions about creating a partnership with the Brookline Community Foundation to engage our community with respect to the American Recovery Plan funding. And so based on the direction of the board, we did meet with the Brookline Community Foundation and solicited a proposal. Giselle Farrell-Quigbo is here as the director who can speak for herself, but as far as the town was concerned, it was precisely the kind of scope of services that we were looking for. And we're enthusiastically recommending that the board approve the agreement with the foundation. And let me just very quickly say that there's really 3 components of it. There is an outward-facing approach at education. So we're looking for the Brookline Foundation, Community Foundation, to be our help us communicate that the American Recovery Plan is there and how one accesses it. So it's really an opportunity to educate. And then we have, coming the other way, we have the Community Foundation seeking input that it wants to give back to the town, which is, what do our residents and what are our community organizations, what does our community think about our priorities for this funding? And that will inform you as the select board, which will help you identify priorities and make decisions going forward. And the third aspect is what we refer to as technical assistance. And in that case, the foundation would help those our community partners who, for whatever reason, are unable to access the portal or understand the regulations. It provides very targeted assistance. And what I call this is that it levels the playing field. It doesn't allow just the people who know and who are always actively seeking funds from the town or engaging with the town are the only ones who are able to do that. And so we think these 3 services are really important. There is a total value of $68,500, which we recommend that we take from a pot of money that we are setting aside for grant management activities. So we believe it's ready to go. It's important to go soon. I think there's a lot of pent up interest in the use of the funds. So the sooner we can begin our public engagement process, then the better off we are.
I see Miriam has her hand up already.
I just want to say, I think it's great. I've looked over the agreement. I think the timeline is ambitious, but reasonable and doable. I think the cost to the town is nominal, frankly, for the amount of work that's going to be done. And I think the value for us as a town, as a select board, to really make sure we are having a full participatory process there is no dollar value for that. That is just completely invaluable. So thank you, Mel and Melissa. Thank you, Giselle. Am I saying your name? Giselle and the Brookline Community Foundation. I love this. I'm really big smile. Thank you.
Great. John has his hand up.
Yeah, I want to echo Miriam. I think we have a good proposal in front of us to work with a good organization that is going to do the job of community engagement to get input on these ARPA funds. I do want to help clarify some things if possible. And I'll just cite the example of a couple of people who spoke earlier this evening during public comment. And we're very specific about issues on Orchard Road having to do with the town's schedule for maintenance of the street, and a lot of evidence that the town has fallen behind what is a acceptable level of routine street maintenance, not just on Orchard Road, but in other parts of town as well. Should they look forward to speaking via the community engagement process, or should they assume that this is an area where it'll be taken care of internally at town hall by the prioritization of coming from department heads, such as Aaron Galentine, who will have their own sort of avenue of bidding for ARPA funds? What is the answer to that question? And it applies as well to a meeting I had earlier today with the Committee on Age-Friendly Cities. Brookline is an age-friendly city, and people were raising all kinds of needs of senior citizens. But as I said to them, maybe those are going to be addressed through the Council on Aging, but maybe some senior citizens should show up as part of the community engagement process. It's really not clear how those kinds of things should be brought to the attention of the ARPA process.
Well, I guess I would respond that ARPA is only one way of funding public services. And, I'm not even going to even begin to debate the qualifications or the eligibility of any particular projects. But public infrastructure is an important issue. It's an important issue whether ARPA existed or not. And, this town could make decisions about instead of spending money on parks and playgrounds and school buildings, could really have wonderful roads. And so these are decisions that are constantly being evaluated and priorities in this town. So it could be ARP, it could be our CIP process, it could be the upcoming infrastructure bill that's coming out of Congress, could be a lot of things. But what I would tell those folks is definitely take advantage of the public engagement process. Let BCF and the town know that they're dissatisfied with the level of the quality of their streets and sidewalks and how it's impacting their lives. I think that makes a lot of sense.
I would agree with that as well. If I could just add that, the department heads are going to be going through their existing budget processes, and we'll be talking about where there's overlap between ARPA and CIP. But obviously everyone knows there's not enough CIP funds to cover all the needs. But I really think that, this community engagement process is going to help us kind of cast a broader net. And these needs will crop to the top as well if they are the ones that the community wants to prioritize. So I think it's helpful to have people participate in the community engagement process. Last week at advisory, I had the same question about, well, how do we kind of get involved? And I said, you're part of the community, so you're part of the engagement process as well.
Giselle, would you like to make a comment?
Yes, thank you. And I think what I'm hearing too underneath that question or underneath the comment is a question of wonder that I had that is a little bit outside of the community engagement process. And I've heard it in a couple of places, which is, are there going to exist parallel ways or tracks for people to make requests of ARPA funding? Or is it all going to be done through the OpenGov platform? And so I think that is key underneath there, because then it directs people, of course, to participate, hopefully, in the community engagement process. But then people are really clear as to if they do or don't, they can still request or make request via the appropriate format. And that is, I'm still a little unclear on that. But again, that's outside of the community engagement process.
So I might take this one, and I kind of wanted to weigh in on John's question as well. My understanding is we really want a paper trail of where the ideas come from. And so my preference is to send everybody through the portal that we've created. I assume that the department heads, they can certainly document where those needs are coming from, because they've probably existed for a while, and we always take things off as budgets become tighter and tighter. So we can certainly demonstrate needs that way. But ultimately, the select board will be the decision-making body. And this board likes documentation. We like a paper trail of where things are coming from. To John's point, so I work in transportation, and pavement management is one of those things. It's pretty spelled out, and there are just a lot of things to consider, how things make it, on the CIP, and how often roads are replaced and whatnot. You start to mess with that, and you upset a very delicate balance. There is not enough money. And from what I've seen, at least in my professional day-to-day job with the ARPA funding guidance, I'm not sure that wear and tear on roads is really an eligible use. We could make the argument with the revenue replacement, but very little else. That is just that's natural operating costs of the government service that we provide. And with 60% of our budget going towards schools, you've got 40% of the budget to do everything else in town. And it's not that surprising that we only have a couple $100,000 to repair roads. So there's always a philosophical question as to, well, do you elevate well-traveled roads? Do they get, seen more often, or do we do it completely equal and every single road is replaced every, 5, 10, 15 years? You get into some equity debates when you start to elevate projects. So I'll just leave it at that. Any other questions related to this topic? Well, thank you, Mel. This is quite an exciting proposal, and wow, it's so exciting that we have a partner who can actually get the community engagement portion. We heard time and time again in public comment how much people wanted this, and I think it would have been a real struggle for us to do it without a community partner like the foundation.
Well, I concur, and I want to thank Giselle very much. She really listens. When we talked, I said, gee, your proposal was right, what we're looking for. She goes, that's because I listened. I listened to what you said, and she really is. And I think we're going to be a great partner. I do need a board vote to approve this contract, please.
Yeah, Devin just reminded me in the chat. Raul, did you have your hand up?
No, the one thing I wanted to say very quickly is, let us know how we can amplify your efforts. I don't think that we should just send you off to do this work on our behalf and wait till you come back and tell us. If you're hosting sessions, tell us so we can retweet, send out, make sure we get it on the town meeting member list, as well as other lists with all the different organizations that we're a part of, like, use the board, use us to help make people aware that all of this is happening. But thank you.
Great. So I will move approval of the agreement with the Brookline Community Foundation in the amount of $68,500 to be funded through the town's American Rescue Plan Act funds. All those in favor? Bernard.
Aye.
Raul.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Miriam.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to, we're running about 45 minutes behind. I apologize. Noise bylaw waiver, public hearing. I will open the public hearing. I understand that Tony Quigley is going to present.
Good evening. I'm here with Derek Ullman from Gilbane Building Company, who's going to provide probably a lot of the details on this. But I wanted to first tell you that I'm sure you've all noticed that the work is in progress out there on Washington Street. And in my opinion, although it's very early, we're off to an excellent start. Everything pretty much has gone according to plan so far. So again, we're very early, but that's good news as far as I'm concerned. The reason for the bylaw waiver request tonight is associated with the earthwork and the supportive excavation and all the excavation that needs to happen for the new building. We have to do what's called dewatering for construction, and that's to remove groundwater from the site as we dig, basically. That's pretty much the explanation for it. And you need power to do that, and a lot of power to run all the pumps. And those pumps have to operate 24/7. So the plan right now is twofold. We're working on getting a power source from Eversource. It's as yet undetermined when that will happen. So in the meantime, we're looking to potentially put a generator on site very soon to provide temporary power for the pumps. Those generators have to run 24/7. And that's the reason for this, to keep the project on schedule, to keep work moving forward, and so that we can hit the planned occupancy in 23. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Derek. The location of the generator is actually on school property, as you can see from this graphic that he's showing. So with that, I'll turn it over to Derek from Gilbane.
Thanks a lot, Tony. Everybody, thank you, first of all, for your time today. We have an exciting project going on here, obviously, and we're trying to charge forward expeditiously as possible. And in order to do that, like Tony said, we have a bit of a variance between the power that we need for these pumps and the power that we are able to get from Eversource at this time in our construction project. So what we're looking at doing is locating a generator, and it's a very quiet generator. I'll get into some more technical specifications on what we're looking to provide shortly, but it would go on the school property between the public alley here and Westbourne Terrace over in this corner. Like Tony said, this is a critical requirement for us in order to continuously pump groundwater out of our excavation. We have a 20-foot deep excavation, and the groundwater table up quite a bit higher than the bottom of our excavation. The reason that this needs to run 24/7 is that in order to pump out the water, if we were to do that on a daily basis and shut these pumps off at night, we would lose the entire day of work. We need to keep that water table down below the bottom of our excavation on a regular basis. A little bit about what we're proposing to put out here. This is the product data information sheet on the proposed generator. This is a whisper watt generator, and it runs at what right here, you can see a 69 decibel level. I wanted to pull up another screen here. to show you. Everybody's kind of familiar at this point with what we have going on with the CDC, and they're able to, and I was able to pull up some actual decibel level information from the CDC website, which I would consider to be a reputable source here. What is considered to be a normal conversational decibel level, so that dBA is 60. Our generator will run at a 69 decibel level, which is what you would consider to hear from a washing machine or a dishwasher. And then, you know, for city traffic out here, we're up around 80 to 85 decibels. So we're here in between the normal conversational air conditioner level and the washing machine, dishwasher, dryer level. And this is completely, you know, across the street from any local residencies. As you can see on this, what we're proposing to locate the generator where my cursor is, right approximately about here. It's far away from the school classrooms, and it is fully across the street from the closest residency, you know, across the street on Westbourne Terrace. So I'm just going to pull this final sketch back up. You can see the proposed location. This is actually where the new school is going to go, and the existing school is all the way up here, further up along Westbourne. So again, just to recap, it's the quietest model generator that we can get in the market right now. It operates at slightly above a normal person-to-person conversational level at the noise decibel at approximately a dishwasher or a washing machine. So that's what we're proposing in order to stay on track and on schedule with our construction operation here, to keep the foundation work moving. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very informative. Bernard has his hand up.
Yeah, yeah, very informative, very interesting. If you receive access to, I guess, electricity from Eversource, I assume you still have to run the pumps to dewater the ground. What is the noise level of the pumps? I would think that they'd be pretty high too.
Those are down, those pumps, the noise level of those is down below the 60 decibel level, which we consider, you know, conversational level. And the pumps are actually submersed down 20 feet below grade. So they are encased, and the sound is attenuated actually by the earth itself. And they do not provide you know, a noisy environment. So
right.
Once we do finally get that power from Eversource, you know, this nuisance, potential nuisance noise, which is really, you know, at a fairly low level, will be eliminated.
So just to remind me, is this going to be running the entire time?
It will, we are proposing to have it run, I'm sorry, I'm pulling up the waiver here, it's loading. The worst case scenario through 11/1/21. And we're working expeditiously as we can with Eversource to get that street utility power out here prior to then. But as you may or may not know, working with Eversource, it can pose its own challenges. So, you know, this is a belt and suspenders type of request here to make sure that we can get this in place and deliver this school on time, on schedule.
But it will be 24/7.
It will run, yes, I'm sorry. It will run around the clock, yes.
Miriam has her hand up.
Go ahead, Miriam.
Hi, sorry, I'm multitasking. What notification has been given to the neighbors? Just so I know that we're letting all the people around be aware that this is coming.
Tony, I saw you unmuted yourself. Go ahead.
I'll speak to that, Derek. So we complied with the requirements of the noise bylaw waiver process. We placed an ad in the Brookline tab, and we worked to find out, we actually went beyond the requirements of notification because it says immediate abutters. Well, immediate abutters was pretty narrow when you look at this site. So we sent out letters to 405 residents who are not only property owners, but just residents. We didn't limit it to property owners. So 405 letters went out last week in terms of outreach in the ad in the Brookline tab.
Great, thank you very much. I'm sorry.
That was very good discretion, Tony.
Well, you know, we like to, I mean, honestly, as I said, as my opening statement, knock on wood, things have gone quite well so far. And I gotta believe that that has to do a lot with, you know, just the team we have, but also we try to anticipate things. And we try to do a lot of planning and outreach. We try to go overboard with that. And I think a lot of it has to do with all of those things. And again, it's very early, but I think we're going to have an excellent, I know we're going to have an excellent project here. We just are. So.
I think that's the right attitude in this case, especially the more there's no such thing as too much communication with the neighbors, homeowners, and everyone involved. So I think it's great. I appreciate that.
Thank you. John has his hand up.
Yeah, maybe this is a little bit tangential, for which I apologize, but I just want to thank all of those who took part in this presentation. And I want to make the point that, yes, this is not going to be easy for people to live with. It's going to require everybody to, you know, kind of grin and bear it for a little while. But when it is necessary for there to be a noise nuisance, and this is one of those times, this is how it should be addressed, with accountability, clear explanations, time limitations that will be, as much as possible, rigorously adhered to, and options for people who, you know, nonetheless, once the noise begins to make itself felt, you know, want to be able to talk to somebody, want to be able to express a concern and have that concern addressed. This is how we should deal with these issues when they arise in Brookline. How we should, and where we're not being given accountability, and we are not being given answers, and we are not being given the opportunity to ask questions, and we are not being given relief and mitigation, is the ongoing work by the MBTA, in this case that I'm very well aware of, on the D line, which has been a nightmarish noise nuisance for people, especially in the Beaconsfield Road area and near the Beaconsfield stop. But it's not limited to that. But to hear their repeated tales of the construction equipment that parks on site at the Beaconsfield stop in the middle of the night, and I'm talking 1 a.m. and afterwards, with total disregard for the nearby neighbors, letting heavy-duty construction equipment idle, pollute the air with noise. And they have tried and tried and tried to get MBTA and DOT to put an end to this and to make the message effective that construction equipment working on these projects cannot just abuse the neighborhood night after night, as they have been in the instance of the Beaconsfield stop. And I know the people in that area have written to us many times and are feeling a lot of frustration. And I wish they could get answers like we just got tonight about this particular project. This is how there should be public meetings and public discussions and accountability when there's going to be a noise nuisance.
Any other discussion before I move approval?
I'll just say, Devin let me know she's having an audio issue. There's a public hearing. I'm seeing no members of the public with their hands raised at this point.
Great. So I will close the public meeting, or the public hearing rather, and I will move approval. Hold on, let me go back to what I am actually approving. I move approval of the noise bylaw waiver request for September 20th through November is it 11th or 1?
11.
I think it's the November 1st.
So it's
I believe
wrong
it's
in the
November
agenda.
1st.
Yes, the request is November 1st.
Okay, so that's the language. At 65 Westbourne Terrace for a 24-hour dewatering operation related to the Driscoll School construction. All those in favor? Bernard,
Aye.
Raul,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Miriam,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, so.
Thank you, folks. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
So now we're going to talk about some upcoming special town meetings. How do I want to handle this? Hold on. So let's start with, oh, John, do you have your hand up to talk about special town meetings or, okay. I want to take up the special town meeting that is not related to the fall warrant first. I think we need to have that discussion. So Melissa, do you want to kind of open us and then I'll figure out how I'm gonna present all of these potential warrant articles for this very discrete special town meeting.
Yes, we have a lot of moving parts here, but I think we'll get through it. So you should have in your packet a confidential memo that I wrote to the board outlining the process to call for a special town meeting around the Alston settlement. So now that that statement has been released and the information is public, that memo can be part of the public packet. Essentially, the board needs to call for a special town meeting. So in order to do that, you'll be waiving some of the notice provisions, posting notice at least 14 days prior to the warrant opening, and then closing the warrant 75 days prior to the start of the special town meeting. We'll still send everything out like we normally do, but we don't want to have to worry about bumping up against those deadlines. And so once you do that, you can call for a special town meeting, open the warrant, insert the article for the agreement, and then close the warrant and execute the warrant. In addition to that, there's a request from the moderator for a remote town meeting. Her earlier request that was done in June covered us for the November 16th town meeting, but since this is October 5th that we're contemplating, we needed her to make another request per the special legislation around remote town meetings. So both of those votes are also in the memo that is in your packet.
Got it. Okay. Should we dispense with that first? That's more of a housekeeping item. Just getting permission that we can have this virtually.
So there's a vote that's lined in your packet, basically to approve the moderator's request for a remote town meeting. And I believe her request was also included in your packet.
Okay. Okay.
This is number 16 of our on our calendar. So we're jumping to the special town meeting, the fall special town meeting is number 16.
Yes. I'm trying to find the motion language. Is this the Tuesday, October 5th at the high school via Zoom to waive the requirements?
So the first vote, I can call out the first vote for you. So the first vote should be to approve the request of the moderator to hold a remote town meeting on October 5th.
Okay, so that's the motion being moved to allow us to call a special town meeting on October 5th virtually.
To allow it to be remote, yes, correct.
Yeah. Okay, so all those in favor of conducting a special town meeting remotely. Bernard.
Same. This and everything. Although I think I can vote on this, but.
Yes, you probably can vote on this. Raul.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Miriam.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Okay, so now that we can host it virtually, hopefully. The other language is tied directly to waiving the requirements of
So
notice.
the second step is now to call for the special town meeting on Tuesday, October 5th at 7 p.m. at the high school auditorium and via Zoom to waive the requirements of section 2.1.2 through 2.1.4 of the town's bylaws, to open and close the warrant and insert in the warrant the following article. And so the article is included in the memo. You can just reference the article as written in my memo dated September 10th, 2021.
Okay, so this only references one warrant article, but I would like the board to discuss two possible additional warrant articles. One, there was a warrant article filed for the fall town meeting related to the geothermal for the Driscoll School. I think it's warrant article 13. I would like to propose that we move that up to be heard because there's a deadline that we're bumping up against. And if we wait until the fall town meeting, which usually happens right before Thanksgiving, we will have missed that deadline. And then it becomes very unclear whether or not we can spend those funds. So I think it's prudent to pull that warrant article that was filed by 2 town meeting members and to pull it into this special town meeting.
So that would be Article 16 on the original warrant for the special town meeting. So you would basically, from what I'm gathering, you would like to, in addition to the article that was included in my memo, also add an article that duplicates the wording that was submitted under Article 16 of the original special town meeting one.
Yes. So I'm seeing some head nods. Okay, so that then there has been some late breaking news. I got an email request today, this morning, from a town meeting member who wants us to discuss and possibly put on this special town meeting warrant a warrant article to indemnify Stanley Spiegel. So let's talk about whether or not we want to consider putting it on this special town meeting, or if perhaps we put it on the fall warrant, which would be considered with other warrant articles that have been filed recently. We do have that discretion because we have not executed the warrant. Okay.
That's correct.
So in his communication to me, he indicated that he is gathering the 200 signatures necessary to call a special town meeting, which is the reason why I am bringing this before the board, because we would potentially have to convene another special town meeting on this particular topic. Miriam and then John.
Thank you, Heather. So I am not in favor of adding anything to the special town meeting we just called for October, other than the Driscoll geothermal wells and the settlement agreement. And I think, we are calling an urgent special town meeting for urgent, important, really pressing matters that have to be dealt with. If we don't deal with the Driscoll geothermal wells, there's a real financial implication. I think on top of that, and I'm just going to be quite frank here, I think what's happening is that the select board, the way this should go forward with Mr. Spiegel, there's a process by which he is attempting to circumvent. And he can attempt to circumvent it. He's certainly welcome to, but I don't feel comfortable just laying down and say, sure, you don't like the way the process is, we'll do it your way. That's just not how I'm not okay with that. So I'm more than happy to take this issue up in November as regular. What I'd love is for him to come to us as a select board and let us deal with this issue as is appropriate. But what I'm not comfortable with is putting this on our October 5th special town meeting. Thank you.
John.
Well, to begin with, I have a question. Is it my understanding that that an attempt to put this on the October 5th warrant by other than the select board would probably not be doable in the time frame that within which the warrant will be open for additional articles. Is a citizen petition to add to that warrant even possible?
So if they were to file, let's say we got the petition yesterday, the board has 90 days to schedule the town meeting once we receive the petition. So the general law says 45, but we have a special act that says 90 days. So if we got the petition tomorrow, we could still schedule it within the existing town meeting.
Were you referring to that petition, John, or a petition of 10 registered voters to submit a warrant article?
Well, I thank you for asking these clarifying questions, and I'm actually trying to figure out, other than via a vote of the select board, is there any way that supporters of Stanley Spiegel, of the Stanley Spiegel proposal with Stanley Spiegel, affecting Stanley Spiegel, is there any way to get it on the October 5th warrant? I don't think it should be on the October 5th warrant. Let me make that clear. I'm trying to send a message to folks who do want to see us act on this, as I do, that if we don't put it on the October 5th warrant, then all of our best efforts should be focused on getting it on a warrant in November, or the select board disposing of this. And I mean disposing of it, I hope, positively. So I'm just trying to get that message out there, clarify things for people to the extent possible.
This is all within the board's domain. What's on the warrant for the October 5th special is your decision.
Okay, it's entirely our decision. Okay, and
there's no opportunity for petition. There's the deadlines for the petitions are not available.
Okay, so I'm glad we got that clarified. And as I say, although I do not favor it being on the October 5th warrant, I do favor a positive resolution of what is the subject matter of the proposed article. And I encourage the supporters of that article to focus their attention on the November town meetings. Well, I think the select board should focus our attention on the November town meeting. And if there is a decision by the proponents of that article to come to the select board for the select board to deal with and positively deal with that proposal, I, for one, will be in favor of it. And I just want to make all of those things clear to those listening. That's all.
Bernard.
Let me just get clear. So what you're proposing, John, is that he come and ask us to vote to indemnify? I mean, what is it that he would be asking the select board to do if he came to us?
Well, to extend the same indemnification to Stanley Spiegel that is going to apply to the other named individuals in the settlement of the Gerald Alston matter, and then we got to figure out, what does that mean? What is the cost of indemnifying Stanley Spiegel? And there's going to have to be some discussion of what's the dollar amount tied to that. But yes, that's what I'm saying.
Which is what he's been trying to do for the last 3 or 4 years. But
he has been trying to do it, but we're now at a critical point where we are trying to move forward once and for all on the Gerald Alston matter. And I think this should be part of it. And I hope it will be part of it.
So let me try to make my intentions clear. I think that there are the votes to put this on the normal fall town meeting warrant. So I'm trying to poll the board to see whether or not that's where we stick this warrant article, or if there are the votes to put this on the October 5th. I'm getting the impression that there are not enough votes to get this on the October 5th warrant. So let's maybe put a pin in this until we start talking about the fall town meeting warrant. Right now, we're talking about the special town meeting warrant, which will be called for October 5th. Bernard, and then Raul.
Yeah, just to clarify, if it's on the October 5th or November town meeting warrant, it requires a 50% vote. This is not going to be bonded, I take it. Is that true, Melissa?
Well, this is not a select board petition, so the way that I read the email that came in earlier, it didn't reference any bond financing for it. So, you know, I would rely on the petitioner to explain what the article's intent is, though.
Okay, so presumably 50% vote. Okay.
Okay, Raul.
Sure, and I'll be brief because I'll confirm what you're thinking, Heather. And yeah, I'm the third person that's going to say no to putting this on the October 5th special town meeting. Go get the signatures, bring it forward, and then it'll be our responsibility to try to slot it in somewhere. You know, sending an email to the board the day that we're going to take a vote on things and expecting us to have properly vetted this when we, you know, including there are some of us that actually have jobs during the day, is completely unreasonable. And I'm glad that other board members agree that it's not the right move to vote on this today at all for any date. And that's something we can come to in the future, and then we'll have another opportunity to discuss the various merits and demerits of this position. But for now, no on October 5th. Thanks.
Okay, so the special town meeting warrant will include 2 articles. The first article will be the geothermal warrant article as submitted. And then the second warrant article will be regarding the Gerald Alston settlement request for bonding authority of $11 million.
Can we have a vote on the Spiegel article? I mean, this has been going on for years and years. And, you know, I want to make it clear that I support Spiegel on this issue.
Bernard,
even in this
respectfully,
case. Pardon?
Respectfully, Bernard, just hold on to that thought, and we will talk about it when we're talking about the fall town meeting warrant. Okay, right now, we're limited to the special town meeting for October 5th.
Okay, we can vote it down, but I want to be able to vote in the minority in favor of it.
Are you talking about
The
Spiegel?
October 5th
Okay.
town meeting that he asked for.
So do you want me to separate the geothermal from the Gerald
Oh,
Alston?
yeah. Well,
I mean,
separate
this
the
is
Spiegel
the
from the
warrant.
Gerald Alston.
So the warrant will include a warrant article on geothermal and a warrant article on bonding authority. That's
Right.
the special town meeting warrant for October 5th. That's what we're voting on.
And Marty is asking for a third warrant article for, at my understanding, for Stanley Spiegel.
And we just talked about that. There are not enough votes to get it on the October 5th.
I know. I'd like an opportunity to lose that vote.
Okay. So the proposal is a third warrant article considering Stanley Spiegel's indemnification request. All those in favor of all 3 of those warrant articles? Bernard,
Aye.
Raul,
No.
John,
And we are going to come back on vote on 2 of the 3, right? I mean, I don't want this to be the end of the matter.
you're good. Just trust me, John.
Yeah, okay, I got you. With all due respect to my colleague, Mr. Green, I am voting no, and I think I made clear earlier why. Yeah,
Was that a no?
that was a no. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Raul,
You already voted.
I already
no.
voted. It's on to Miriam.
okay, well, just
Sorry,
say the
no.
words.
No.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Miriam,
No.
okay, and the chair votes no. Okay, so the motion is now for 2 warrant articles, one on geothermal for Driscoll and the other one on bonding authority for the Gerald Alston settlement. Should I
So-
read the language?
I've called up the vote, so if you want to just reference, so the vote to call a special town meeting on Tuesday, October 5th at 7 p.m. The high school auditorium and via Zoom to waive the requirements of section 2.1.2 through 2.1.4, open and close the warrant and insert the following articles as outlined below and also in my memo and also in the special town meeting warrant for November 16th, you'll see the words of the two articles in front of you. So that's the first vote.
Great. Thank you so much, Melissa. So here is the language. Should I read the whole language?
You can just reference my memo for Article 1 and then reference the warrant from the special town meeting for November 16th for Article 2.
Okay, so referenced. So all those in favor? Bernard,
Abstain.
Raul,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Miriam,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye.
And then your third vote would be to execute the warrant for the October 5th, 2021 special town meeting.
Great. I move approval to execute the warrant for the October 5th, 2021 special town meeting, hereby known as the third special town meeting. Bernard,
Abstain.
Raul.
This is on geothermal, yes?
Yes.
It's for
Sorry.
it's both articles. Yeah.
My
It's
fault.
like closing the public meeting or the public hearing.
Got it. Aye. Sorry.
John,
Aye.
Miriam,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Okay, so we have a special town meeting set for October 5th with 2 warrant articles. Now let's move the discussion into the fall warrant.
Yes, so now we have, let's go back to our original warrant. So the warrant closed 2 weeks ago for the normal special town meeting that we have. We got 29 articles. Because of the holiday, we did not execute last week, so we're looking to execute this week. And I can give you a quick summary of the articles that were filed. So we have unpaid bills, collective bargaining agreements. We discussed the articles filed by the board around civil service and liquor license authority. We have an easement for 60 to 64 Harvard Street. That's right by the Pierce School. We have an article on sidewalk obstructions, an article to increase caps on marijuana retailers, an article to decrease caps on marijuana retailers. A resolution to establish a study committee around marijuana as well. Resolution on hybrid town meetings that the board filed. Special legislation to exempt the town from in-person quorums. A resolution around hybrid meetings in town for town committees. Then we have a general bylaw in order to require roll call votes. With general bylaw edit to require certain disclosures for EDAP members. An article that creates a new bylaw around language access services. The geothermal ground source heat pumps, which obviously we just took care of for the October 5th meeting as well. A resolution on a townwide composting program. A resolution on the use of low carbon concrete. An amendment of the town bylaw around nuisance control. A local historic district proposed by the Preservation Commission for Olmsted Richardson Local Historic District. A correction for the town zoning bylaw around section 4.08 of the zoning bylaw. An amendment to the zoning bylaw on the in order to provide for citing of firearm business uses. An amendment to off-street parking filed by Michael Zurob and some other petitioners. My understanding is that this particular article is the broader version of what then get after that, the planning board filed a very similar article. So we're listing the Zurob article first and then the planning board article second. I think there's hope that there'll be some kind of reconciliation so that we're not debating two different articles at town meeting. Then we have zoning bylaw amendments around EV ready parking spaces. A resolution on transforming our planning and zoning in the age of COVID. We have an amendment to the general bylaws requesting or requiring that petitioners add fiscal impact to their warrant article submissions. We have an amendment to the general bylaw around fur products in town. Another amendment to the general bylaw requiring public hearings for certain polling and other election activity. And I believe that is it. So that is your first special town meeting. If the board would like to insert an article into that meeting, I can have a vote crafted that will allow you to do that. You would need to reopen the warrant, slide the article in, and then close the warrant before you execute it. But I'll let you continue your discussion on that particular article.
Okay, so I asked us to kind of pause where the discussion was because I was sensing that the board did not have the votes for October 5th, but I'm getting the impression there may be the votes to consider the Stanley Spiegel indemnification warrant article to be a special within the fall regular. John, you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you for that. And just to repeat, I would like to see that happen, and I will vote for inserting it in the November warrant. And belatedly, I just want to give quick credit to a couple of people, Scott Ananian and Dave Gashek. I'm sure there are others that should share in that credit, but they did a lot of the work of getting the Driscoll ground geothermal article onto the November warrant. And it was because they did that work that we had a ready-made article to move to the October 5th warrant. And it's an appropriate time to thank them and all of the supporters who are growing by the day of that article. We've got a lot of work to do, but I think this is a very hopeful sign that we have that article on the October 5th warrant.
And Andy Fisher, who is a co-petitioner.
Andy, of course. Andy, sorry about that, but thank you, Heather.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Bernard, I assume that you're in favor of
Put it
moving.
on the November. Yes.
Yeah.
Ask me.
Raul.
Yeah, I mean, just absolutely not on this. We just received word about this today, this afternoon. We have not had to, I have not read everything that came into our inbox with regard to this. And asking the board to vote on this today is frankly just wrong. And as a matter of process, if nothing else, absolutely not. These are unreasonable expectations for us to be ready to vote on this. I think only because folks are supporters of Stanley Spiegel and his lawyer. Good for you. They might be ready to vote on this, but there's been no process here whatsoever and no opportunity to even consider this. And we're being asked to vote on it tonight. That's just wrong.
Well, so I'll just point out a distinction. We're not voting on whether or not we agree with it. We're voting on whether or not to put it before town meeting.
Right. And the process that will entail on the select board as well as advisory committee and other committees.
Yeah, respectfully, we don't even know that if this is permissible for a town meeting to direct the select board to indemnify someone. If that's even permissible.
Putting warrant articles up.
Well, hey,
Bernard,
we've had that problem before.
Please try not to interrupt other.
Yeah. So anyway, I've made my position clear, and I don't need a lecture. Thanks.
Miriam and then John.
Thank you. I think I've already also made my position clear, but it's not just the October 5th. I'm not in support of voting for something that ended up in my inbox at 3:30 p.m. this afternoon. So, just to me, again, we're circumventing a process here, and I find that highly problematic. And I don't want to set that kind of precedent that you don't get what you want and therefore you circumvent the process. I would urge you to give us the time to be more thoughtful on this. And I think it's obvious where I'm going to be landing on my vote.
John.
Thank you, Chair Hamilton, for moving this as you said you would. And I'm going to vote for it, and I'm going to vote in favor of it when the time comes at town meeting. And I get it that it's never it's never pleasant to face something that comes in unexpectedly. But I don't think it's quite on the mark to say that to treat this as though it's something that we are totally unfamiliar with. We have no idea what this is all about. We know exactly what this is all about. This is has been a background part of the Alston question that we have been dealing with for years and years and years and years. And we have reached the point in the question of the Gerald Alston litigation where we are staking a lot of the town's money, if town meeting agrees, if it gets approved by town meeting, on once and for all disposing of the Alston matter in its entirety as it affects all parties who have been subjected to litigation. And it was at some pain and effort that during the negotiations to bring an article to town meeting for their consideration, we as a board took the measure of making sure that in the agreement, all parties are covered. And it's kind of meaningless to cover all parties if we leave out one of them when it comes to covering the expenses that they incurred as a result of this litigation. And so I cannot in good conscience, when the time comes for this vote, vote to deny the same indemnity to Stanley Spiegel that has been extended to every one of the other parties in this litigation. That's why I take my stand. And I think these issues have been well known for years.
So I'll say this, why I will support it. I do believe that the petitioners intend to gather 200 signatures, and we will be faced with when to schedule this. And since we are faced with executing the fall town warrant, I think that this is appropriate to put on the fall town warrant. He wants an audience in front of his peer town meeting members on this issue. I'm willing to give him that right. As far as notice, we were caught between a rock and a hard place. We were dealing with things that had not been made public, so we couldn't exactly advertise that we were about to do a special town meeting. So would he have given us more notice if we had been a little more transparent about what we were doing, although our hands were tied because, you know, we hadn't voted really yet to be able to advertise properly. It's kind of a catch-22. So he will get the 200 signatures. I have no doubt about that. And we will have to find a time to put this before town meeting. Raul.
Sure, I'll say let him get the signatures. If there's no question in my mind that if these were two still good, still upright, residents of Brookline that had sent us an email asking for this today, who were not friends with members of this board, there's no doubt in my mind that we would have sent them packing and said, look, get the signatures. And this is a shameful moment, I think, for the board to be doing this in this way. And I let them get the signatures. It'll probably get on the warrant anyway. But for us to participate in something like this, I'm ashamed right now.
Okay.
Motion.
Let's vote. Those in favor of execute, well, what is the motion, Melissa?
I just need a minute because I have too many Word documents open, trying to anticipate all the scenarios. So essentially, before you execute the warrant, you want to vote pursuant to the authority granted in section 2.1.4 of the town's bylaws. The board waives the requirements of section 2.1.3 of the bylaws for the sole purpose of inserting the following warrant article. And then I can share my screen so that you can see what the article says. So this is the article that was submitted this afternoon. So essentially,
to be clear, this is not being moved by the select board.
You're voting to open the warrant again because you haven't executed it yet. Insert this additional article. So we'll call this one Article 30 because it'll be at the end because it's the last one submitted. And then you're closing the warrant and then executing the warrant.
Okay. Okay, so that's the motion. John, you have your hand up? You're muted.
Thank you. I just want to go on the record as saying that I think that with all due respect, Mr. Fernandez's remarks are unworthy of him. That was an ad hominem argument aimed at casting doubt on the integrity of his fellow select board members by accusing them of taking a vote only out of friendship. And it is not true in my case. And I don't think it's any more true that Mr. Fernandez voted against this out of animus. So let's leave that out of these arguments, if you please, in the future.
Okay,
let's vote.
let's vote. Bernard,
Aye.
Raul,
Heck no.
John,
Aye.
Miriam,
Absolutely not.
and
That's
the
a
chair
no.
votes. The chair votes aye.
Right.
Okay, so this is now part of the warrant and now we move to execute the warrant.
Yes.
I believe I have that language, but Melissa, please correct me if I do not read the correct language.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
By the way, so this will be the last article on the warrant?
We've numbered everything else. We've basically drafted the warrant. So I'm adding this to the end to make it easy for administrative purposes.
Make it difficult from a town meeting perspective. Oh, wow, that's life.
Okay, so the language I have is I move to call a special town meeting on Tuesday, November 16th at 2021 at 7:30 p.m. at the high school auditorium via Zoom to
No,
waive the.
We've already done that. So you've already
Okay.
called for the special. You've already had the warrant open and closed. You've just amended the warrant. And so now you just need to execute the warrant.
Okay, so can I just move approval of executing the warrant for November
Yes.
2021? Bernard?
Yeah, I assume that the warrant includes both our budget articles as well as the other articles.
So that's next.
Oh,
We're calling another special to segregate the budget.
Sorry, I apologize.
We'll get there.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna, this is going to be affectionately referred to as special town meeting 1, the regular call. I move to execute the special town meeting 1 fall town meeting warrant. Okay, all those in favor? Bernard,
Aye.
Raul,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Miriam,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. So now the budget warrant article?
Yeah, why don't we take care of that before we deal with unpaid bills? Because I think we're a little ambitious scheduling our first warrant article hearing. So essentially we are adopting the same practice that we did last year in order to make sure that we conclude our budget in a timely manner to allow for the tax rate certification to be done in a timely manner. And so you have a memo from me in your packet dated September 10th, which outlines the requirements to call another special town meeting. We'll call this one special town meeting 2. So essentially you're lifting the same requirements that we did for the October 5th special, which is posting notice of the board's intent to hold a special town meeting 14 days prior to the opening of the warrants. And then you're also waiving closing the warrant 75 days prior to the start of the special town meeting, which is 2.1.3. And so the motion is on the second half of the memo, essentially to call a special town meeting on Tuesday, November 16th, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. So it's a half an hour after the special town meeting 1 at the high school auditorium and via Zoom to waive the requirements of sections 2.1.2 through 2.1.4 of the town's bylaws to open and close the warrant and to insert in the warrant the following article. And the article is on page 2 of my memo dated September 10th, 2021.
Great. So that's the motion. Because I'm not reading that again. Any questions before I call the roll? Okay, seeing none. Bernard,
Aye.
Raul,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Miriam.
Aye. Sorry, my dog is.
No worries. The chair votes aye. Thank you so much, Melissa.
One more, we now need to execute the warrant for the second special town meeting.
Okay. So I move to execute the warrant for the special town meeting 2.
Yes.
We'll call it special town meeting 2, affectionately known as the budget 1. Okay, all those in favor of executing that warrant? Bernard,
Aye.
Raul,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Miriam,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. So are we taking up unpaid bills?
Yes, we are, and I'm happy to report that we do not have any. So this should be a very easy item. The recommendation is no action.
No action. Moving no action on.
It is a public hearing.
It is a public hearing.
It's a public hearing, okay. And James Franco has his hand up.
He wants us to act.
His hand's up been up for a while. I'm not sure if he wanted to comment on this or not, but let's check. Well, he's gone from the list and he's not yet promoted, so I'm not sure where he went. We do have a hand up from Andy Fisher.
Okay. See if we can get Andy promoted.
This is on unpaid bills, of which we have none. Just a reminder. Andy.
I just wanted to say thank you to the board for their problem. You know, there are two kinds of people in the world: those who say we can't, and those who say we'll find a way. And I want to thank John and Raul and Miriam and Heather and the whole board for finding a way to move forward on the alternative energy and heating for the Driscoll School. And thanks, and I hope that people will in the future look to the example that's being set here by the board and by the town.
Thank you for work on that, Andy.
Thanks, Andy. And Andy, while we appreciate your comments, they are not germane to this topic, which is unpaid bills, a reminder of which we have none. But we do have James Franco who raised his hand earlier. So let's get him in here. And James, if you are talking, you're muted.
I'm sorry, I have nothing to say on this article. I wanted to speak earlier. Thank you so much.
Oh, we apologize for not recognizing you, Jim.
All right.
Okay, so I will close that public hearing. And we will move no action on this warrant article 1.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so no action on warrant article 1. All those in favor? Bernard,
Yes.
Raul,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Miriam,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Okay, so board and commission appointments, if I'm not mistaken. I've been kind of jumping around all evening. So, okay, we'll start with CDICR. I think there's only one to be reappointed, Isan Leckie, for a 3-year term. So I will move approval of reappointing Isan Leckie to a term of service for 3 years expiring in 2024. Oh, John.
I just want to add a note, which is kind of a, late breaking news on this particular item. And that is that there are 2 vacancies that were left by some very, very, well, all 3 of these vacancies were left by very, very good and important people who served this commission. But Mariah Nobrega sadly is not continuing in her seat. Oh my goodness, I'm blanking on her name now, but I'll think of it in a second.
Joan.
Say it again.
Joan Lancourt.
Oh, well, Joan, I didn't think of because we had recognized that earlier in the year, but there's someone, I'm sorry, and I apologize that I'm blanking on, but then John.
John, her name is Eloise Lawrence.
Eloise Lawrence, thank you very much. Yeah. So there are actually 3 vacancies currently on the commission, and I just wanted the public to know that in case, there are people in the future who are interested in serving on the commission. And looking forward to voting on this reappointment.
Great. Okay. So the motion has been made. Any other comments before I take the roll call? Okay. Bernard.
Aye.
Raul.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Miriam.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Now, long awaited, we had a lot of interest in Parks and Recreation Commission. So I'm going to say some names. Bernard.
Yeah, can I just add, I don't know if you've been made aware of this, but Jim Carroll has dropped out of the running. You know
Yes.
that? Okay, good.
He and I spoke today, and I thanked him for his service.
Great, yeah, and we all should thank him for his long service on Park and Recreation and all the things he does for the town, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I will move, hold on. Okay, so there are a few people who are currently serving on Parks and Rec, and I think that they deserve to be reappointed. So I will recommend Nancy O'Connor, Clara Batchelor, Antonia Balalta. And then because we have 2 vacancies, Teresa Mooney, who I think we recently interviewed, and then John Pan. Any discussion about that before I move that we appoint them? Okay, seeing none, those are the names that I would like to see appointed to the Parks and Recreation Commission. So all those in favor, Bernard?
Aye.
Raul?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Miriam?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. And I believe that's our business for tonight.
Good.
Didn't think we were gonna get there before.
No, we got there. Good meeting.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you all.